For many of us, if we could get from negative 100 back to 0, we would be thrilled. Like, we're living down here and we're like, man, if I could just own a phone that didn't have a history that I have to clear all the time, I would be doing great. 0 would be the high water mark for many of us. And yet that's not where we're actually meant to live. We have a much, much higher call and a much, much higher ability. When you see Jesus, here's a guy who, you remember this whole story about the woman caught in adultery. Now we think about how gracious he is and how forgiving and all of that, but let's think about it from another angle. She's caught in the act of adultery. 2 things. 1, she's probably good looking, and 2, she might be pretty naked. And she's thrown in front of Jesus, and he's not dealing with what we're dealing with. He's not trying to be pious in that moment. And it's not because, he's so otherworldly that he never would have even had a thought. It says that he was tempted in every way in Hebrews, right? You guys know the Bible, right? So he's tempted in every way, but that doesn't mean that he actually gave in at some point to a lustful thought. It means everything passed across his radar. So everything's coming across his screen, but none of it has a hook in him. So none of it is able to get a hold of him. It says, it's in John 13, he says, the God of this world is coming for me. And he says, and he has nothing in me. I love that because it's so, the picture of Christ's heart is like this rock-faced cliff that's sanded perfectly smooth and covered in petroleum jelly. There's nothing in him. The enemy has no hook at all. And Paul writes in Ephesians, he says, don't let Satan get a foothold. Don't let him get any of those little hooks. Don't let him get any place to climb on your life and pull down. So we want to have that same heart that's pure and Vaseline covered and no hooks and no ability to get a hold of us. And so we're not going to talk about fruit, and we're not going to talk about behavior modification, and we're not going to talk about those kind of strategies. What we're going to deal with tonight, we're going to get into some identity stuff, and we're going to talk about some heart stuff. Because this is bigger than just one issue. If you got one issue, you might be dealing with some other issues. There could be fear, there could be insecurity, it could be some alcohol, it could be some drugs. I don't know where everybody's coming from. But the tree puts out the fruit, but all of the issues are in the ground. So we got to deal with the roots of these trees. So what I want to start with is we're going to start with 2 Corinthians 6. If you guys want to pull it up on your phone or if you brought your Bible, 2 Corinthians 6, I want to show you something. Paul's writing in verse 14. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 14. Do not be yoked together with unbelievers. For what do righteousness and wickedness have in common? Or what fellowship can light have with darkness? What harmony is there between Christ and Belial? Or what does a believer have in common with an unbeliever? Okay, we'll pause right there. 2 key words I want you to see. The first, verse 14, it says yoked. And verse 15, it says harmony. Those are 2 very interesting words when you start to study these out. When you get married, how many of you guys are married? Okay, quite a few. So when you get married, you're yoked. That's the yoking part. But just because you're yoked doesn't mean you're in harmony. Come on. If you've been married more than a week, there are times that you're yoked and not in harmony. What happens is if you take 2 guitars and you set them side by side, on one of them you can strum the strings, and the strings on the other one will actually start to match the vibration of the first guitar. That's harmony. They're brought together, which is the close part, the yoking part, the bonding part, but the harmony is when they're actually resonating together, the frequencies, the vibrations. But a lot of times what can happen in our life is like taking a paper clip and putting it on the strings of the second guitar. You strum the first guitar, the second guitar is not going to match. It's not going to be in harmony. Because the paper clip, which would be a metaphor for an offense or fear or unforgiveness or other issues that are in our heart, cause disharmony. Making sense? Yeah. Come on. So what happens for us is that we have to look at two things, bonding and harmony. And for many guys, we settle back to, well, we got yoked, we got married, I'm here, I'm paying the bills, aren't I? I'm, whatever the statement is, that's kind of like the fallback position. Like, I'm still here, letting you yell at me. I'm still here. I'm still trying to take care of things. I'm trying to be a good husband. I don't know what I'm doing. That's not where we're called to live, though. Yeah. What you actually want to be pursuing is harmony. Yeah. Now, harmony is a whole different level, though, because harmony is an ongoing, intentional, scary choice. Because sometimes you got to take those paper clips off your heart. Sometimes you got to deal with something. There's something that came from your parents, came from an old relationship that put paper clips in there, and there are areas that you just aren't on the same wavelength. And that stuff causes disharmony. And when there's disharmony, you start to harmonize with other things. So think about this. You're in disharmony with your spouse, but here's something on the internet that's willing to act like it's harmonizing with you. And that feels really refreshing in that moment. And we seek false comfort outside the comforter. Is this making sense? Okay, so we have to get a pursuit of harmony at the core here. If we can go after harmony here, then you're eating from the right plate. You're having everything from your own well. So that's what we're going after. But when disharmony comes in, it puts you in a dangerous spot. And now you're in this spot that all kinds of things can try to come into harmony with you.